best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars, the best place for in-depth discussions and analysis, sprinkled with a little bit of silliness. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
And I am Jason Hondo Ling.
And I am Chris. Just Chris. That'll do.
Just Chris. He's not little Chris. Don't worry. He is Chris who is still with us, still one with this earth. It's maybe a sad joke. I shouldn't have made that, but we are here to talk about
reference,
Acolyte, which is maybe a tragic show, I suppose. So maybe we can make tragic jokes. Yes, welcome to Star Wars. We are back. We are talking Star Wars The Acolyte. The first 2 episodes have just aired on Disney Plus on June the 4th, June the 5th, depending on which side of the sea you are on. And we are going to be deep dive reviewing both episode 1, Lost and Found, and episode 2, Revenge and Justice. Before we dive into sort of our deep dive review of the episodes, I suppose we'll go to you first, Jason. Just what were your thoughts going into The Acolyte, and like how excited were you when you sat down to watch it on the Wednesday morning?
Yeah, for me, it was something I've been looking forward to because I like the idea that we're going into a bit of the unknown. It's territory that has previously only really been explored in obviously novels and comic books. So obviously we're at the end or towards the end of the High Republic. And I was just like, yeah, I want to see something fresh. And I think that's what we're getting, and yeah, it was. I wasn't disappointed, so which is a good thing. And my excitement, I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning, ready to sit and watch and digest. And then last night again, I sort of sat down and just had another watch of it. So and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think I was very excited for this show. Obviously, I'd seen the sneak peek at Star Wars Celebration last year, last April. Obviously, I have read some of the High Republic, and I do love the era. And then obviously, just the fact this was the Acolyte, and as I've said on many episodes of this show, just the idea of learning a bit more about the dark side, maybe some dark side lore that we don't know, maybe some dark side artifacts, things like that, just things of that nature. Was very exciting to me, and sort of seeing how the darkness seeps into the Republic ahead of the prequel trilogy and the downfall of the Jedi. I was very excited about watching. Chris, what were your thoughts sort of going in? I know you stayed away from too much. I think you watched the first trailer and that was it, sort of to try and keep yourself fresh, but just how excited were you going into the show, and how excited were you when you finally sat down and watched it?
Yeah, I mean, it's something a bit different, to echo what Holder was saying. It's something different, and that's nice. It's you've got your generic Star Wars story that's been told a lot, and we all love it. We're all familiar with it. But anytime we get something that's a little bit different, a little bit new, I think that's maybe why people loved Andor so much, because it was presented in a bit of a different way, with different slant. So the fact that we're going in on film to a different era that we haven't seen before, but has been explored pretty richly through video games and comics and so on, then it's an era that's rich for us to kind of dive into. So I was excited for it. I was, and I'm not disappointed at all. It's interesting. It's different to what I thought it was going to be, but I'm enjoying it so far. And we're going to get into it as we get into the episode, but it's something that I'm definitely looking forward to. It's been a little bit of a drought of major Star Wars stuff, which we haven't always been able to say over the last few years. But we've had about roughly a year since Ahsoka came out, and I'm hungry for new content.
Hungry, and we are feasting right now, is what I would say. We are feasting well. Let's just dive in. So we're going to review episode 1 of The Acolyte first. So this was again released on June the 4th, June the 5th, depending on which side of the sea you live on. It's available to stream on Disney Plus now. It is written and directed by Leslie Headland, who is, of course, the series showrunner, and it is titled Lost/Found. And a brief description of the episode is: 100 years before the rise of the Galactic Empire, the Galactic Republic and Jedi Order preside during a time of centuries-long peace. In a bar on the planet Ueda, Jedi Master Indara is attacked and killed by a woman wielding daggers. A bartender identifies Osha Anasea, a former Jedi Padawan learner, as the killer. Osha, who works as a mechanic doing dangerous repairs on the outsides of starships, denies committing the crime. When arrested by Jedi Knight Yord Fandor and his Padawan Tassi Loa. En route to Coruscant, the galactic capital, Osha's fellow prisoners escape and leave her to crash land on the planet Karlak. She sees a vision of her twin sister May, who was presumed dead in a fire that killed their family when they were young. Osha deduces that May is alive and the one who killed Indara. Jedi Master Vanessa Rowe sends Master Sol, Osha's former teacher, to Karlak with his current Padawan, Jackie Long, and Yord. They find Osha and Sol accepts her theory about May. Elsewhere, May meets with her mysterious master, who has challenged her to kill another Jedi, this time without using a weapon. So that's sort of a brief description of the episode. I think if we just dive straight into the opening, we'll go to you first, Chris. Just what were your thoughts on this opening of May tracking down Master Indara and then calling her out, and then like sort of the big battle that comes afterwards?
Well, I mean, it was a bit unexpected for obvious reasons. I mean, Carrie Ann Moss, you couldn't get away from the fact that she was kind of, front and center in the series, and they did a bit of a psycho and killed off their leading ladies, so to speak, at least from a promotional point of view, in the first scene, which was is interesting. I don't think she'll crop up later on in the series, but I may be proven wrong with that. There may be flashbacks or something, but it's quite a statement to have somebody like Carrie Ann Moss, very famous for a role in The Matrix, then have her do a bunch of Matrix-esque stuff in a fight and then die straight away. I mean, it really sets up May as a ruthless killer, somebody who can kill these big characters, even if they're ones that we're not familiar with straight away. I think by casting somebody like Carrie Ann Moss in the role, it really you kind of know what to expect, and there was a bit of an impact there when she passed away. So it was a great introduction to May, even though we didn't know that's who she was at this point in the episode. She's set up as a ruthless killer, and we're interested to find out more.
I think what I loved about May was that she's very, I wouldn't say calm, cool, collected, but I'd say she's very collected. She pays that alien outside of the gate to the town, for directions to where the town's Jedi is. She then goes and straight away confronts Master Indara. When she doesn't get what she wants, she turns violent pretty fast on sort of on the bar patrons and bar staff. And then I think that fight where, I think the majority of the fight, Master Indara sort of is fine and not at risk. Obviously, when May pulls those extra knives out and throws them, that's when Master Indara pulls out the lightsaber to block them. And that's when May makes sort of the snide comment about the Jedi when he pulls the lightsaber when they're prepared to sort of use it. And that's when she sort of lowers her blade a bit. And then, May has obviously been learning about the weaknesses of the Jedi, or maybe the strengths of the Jedi, I suppose. What's the strengths of the Jedi is also the weakness of the Jedi to the people, but, she's able to, she knows by throwing that knife at the bar owner that Indara's going to stop it. And then when Indara does that, that leaves Indara open to be attacked herself. And that's essentially what happens. The knife is about to kill the bar owner. Indara uses the Force to stop it. And then before she can even look back at May has already threw a blade straight into Indara's chest. So she was sort of using what she's learned about the Jedi and how kind they can be and how selfless they can be to kill this Jedi, which was, very, very tragic, I suppose. let's go over to you, Jason. What's your thoughts on sort of the opening of the episode, and did it take you by surprise?
Um, I wasn't completely surprised because I think we discussed previously the rumours that Carrie Ann Moss was going to be dispatched fairly early. But for me, it was a brilliant way to open the episode because obviously we saw just how skilled May is, and also, obviously, like you said, she dispatches this this very experienced Jedi. And I just loved, the fight sequence was amazing. Leslie Headland's made no secret that she wanted it to be Matrix esque, and I think that really gave us something different, but truly believable in Star Wars style. So it really made a great opening. Obviously, the fact that May was using these daggers, which is a very physical form of weapon as opposed to what we've seen previously with lightsabers, that was bit different, and I think bringing something like that, which also made it feel older than obviously Star Wars previously has. And I like the way that sort of jumping forward, we then transition to the next scene, and I think Pete and I had discussed in a previous episode about how there was the rumours of the twins, and I was kind of hoping we weren't going to go down the twin route, but for the story, it's brilliant. And I take it back. I'm thoroughly enjoying what's been put in front of us.
Yeah, I think for me, the beginning was very much like the beginning of Watchmen. Like tonight, a comedian died, so it was like tonight a Jedi died, and that's going to kickstart our events, not just into the future but also into the past. I know you said, Chris, are we going to see Carrie Ann Moss again? We've seen still images of like flashbacks, so like we've seen Carrie Ann Moss in more of the gold and orange robes that we see the High Republic Jedi wear. So I think we are gonna go back and see flashbacks of the village burned down, and Jedi Master Tobin, who we saw in Episode 2, is like an older fellow. We see him as a Padawan, I believe, in these flashbacks as well. So we're going to see the four Jedi on the home world of Osha and May, and we're going to see what goes down there definitely. So yeah, I love that sort of that Watchmen-esque beginning of the series, and I think it really set the tone. And we've got like quite an action-packed plus like tragic start, and then it kicked into more of a fun bit when we met Osha on her ship, where she's living her life away from the Jedi Order and trying to have the most fun she can while being a ship mechanic, which I thought was quite cool. I suppose we'll go back to you, Chris. What's your thoughts on sort of on all the Jedi we saw in this episode, and how the Jedi are depicted and sort of the state of the Jedi Order, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an introduction to an era pre the Phantom Menace, which I know is a silly statement, but as we saw them presented there, it's sort of a bit of a continuation, or the opposite, the continuation of what they're like there. I think they're kind of pompous. They're very weighed down with decision making, and there's that bit at the end when Saul's commanded. Episode 2, I'm jumping ahead ever so slightly, when he's commanded that he's got to come back. Rather than pursuing that, he knows what we need to do. It's like, no, we need to come back here. We need to talk about this. They seem a lot more, I would say, sort of regal than we catch up with them in the prequel trilogy. Although certainly some characters, some of the older characters, continue that on. It's a little bit different in the way that they're presented here, but the Jedi they seem a little bit less mystical. I want to say that maybe because there's more of them. They're stronger. They're at maybe the height of their power or close to it. It's a bit of it can be a little bit jarring, I suppose, for those people who aren't aware of this and maybe don't know what's happened before the Phantom Menace, and they're just used to sort of the Jedi on the decline as we kind of are introduced to them. But it's an interesting different portrayal of them, and it reminds me quite a bit of I forget the character's name now, it's escaping me, but the bad guy from Jedi Survivor, who was unthawed from the High Republic era. They carried themselves in a very similar way to the way that he does in that game.
Yeah, I think for me, if you look at the original trilogy, the Jedi are sort of thought of as myth and legend, something that your grandparents maybe talked about. Then even more so in the sequel trilogy, Han very much says, the Jedi were real. I knew Luke Skywalker. Like, it's true, all of it. Because myth and legend. I think in the prequel era, the Jedi are sort of on the decline, and the scene more of people are sort of more making remarks about them than like respecting them, if that makes sense. And I think, but here we see when May asks the townsfolk, where's your Jedi at? They're able to point out quite clearly where Master Indara is, and then in that bar, she's keeping good company with the locals, if that makes sense. So I think the Jedi are probably seen as a lot more vocal and available and part of society, but I think are also respected a lot more. And if you notice, like, sort of the patrons of the bar come to sort of Indara's defense. I mean, they get owned by May for doing that. She very much dispatches them very quickly in combat, but they're very much by her side. They don't all run away. So yeah, there's that all going on. Let's go over to you, Jason. Just sort of, what was your thoughts on sort of the setup of Osha and sort of what Osha's doing, and then how Osha's sort of brought into custody by the Jedi?
Yeah, I love the way, obviously, like when we see Osha wake up, and someone described to me how for them it was quite jarring that all of a sudden this character that, as far as you're concerned initially, has just dispatched a Jedi and seems to be completely oblivious, very much more jovial than the character we'd seen. And that's when, obviously, as it kicks in, you're like, yeah, this is a different character. And I think they portrayed it really well, and the cutting of it and the opening of that and introducing Osha, who, clearly is quite a fun character. She's lived a life away from the Jedi. She's moved on. Obviously, she's got this past that she's been through, but she's carrying on with life and doing the best that she can. And obviously, then we see the good old Nemodians walking through, and you think, the Trade Federation is still or up to no good at this point as well. Which is, it's great to see these aliens back in Star Wars again. And then obviously when Yord turns up to find her, I love the interaction there, and I have to admit the character of Yord, I think, was played very well, and he's got this arrogance about him that I am now a Jedi, Jedi Knight, and all this, that I think plays really well with a lot of the, then juxtaposed against a lot of the other Jedi that we meet. So this opening for me was a lot of fun. Obviously, then we had the sequence where she's at work and the flames and the flashback sort of to what happened. And yeah, just to me that juxtaposition of the two characters set the story up really well, and for me, I think was a really good piece of storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed seeing the Trade Federation. And it was good to see that, like, they weren't breaking serious rules, but, like, obviously the Republic's passed a law saying that you have to use astromechs to go outside of the ship. And obviously these guys are still using the human mechanics, which I thought was funny. I do like how they maybe go to tell a lie, how Osha's not there. And then it's not until Yord goes to use the Force on the leader that the second in command sort of tells you what exactly where Osha is, and they're able to go and speak to her. I like how we get a hint of sort of Yod and Osha were probably Padawans together in the Jedi Temple, so they've definitely got a relationship with the past. And yeah, I think not just here, but also in the second episode, we see Yod. He can be a bit silly, and he's there for comic relief, which is good. I think when you've had such a tragic start, you need some of that fun feeling, if that makes sense, to sprinkle in with it. Otherwise, the show is just too heavy, as Marty McFly would say. But yeah, and I think we see some bits where Yod does actually show his power and prowess as well, which I think is also very, very good. It's not just there for comedy, but he also is quite capable and he needs to be, which we'll talk about certainly in the second episode. I suppose like my other thoughts are, we see some important Jedi here. We see Jedi Master Sol, and I don't know what your thoughts were, Chris, on how Jedi Master Sol is sort of shown in the series of his ability and his status in the Jedi Temple and Jedi culture. We see him teaching younglings, something we see Yoda do in the prequels. And then he also goes on this mission, but we also see him being quite a mindful, a thoughtful, and a caring character, I suppose, as well as being quite powerful, I suppose. So, Chris, what's your thoughts on Jedi Master Sol?
Yeah, he's an interesting character. He seems a little bit like, at least at this stage, a combination of Yoda and Count Dooku, but maybe without the bad side to it that Dooku had. But because he seems both very wise, he's taking that teaching position on the other Jedi, sort of looking up to him more or less. But he's also in that sort of Dooku or Qui-Gon Jinn-esque role of like, come on, I want to do this my way. We don't have to do this. No, we don't have to put her in chains. It's fine. I'm fine. I've decreed that this is fine. And then, as a reference before, he doesn't really have time or see the point in going back to Coruscant to discuss things. He'd rather just act on it. So he's kind of in that role as well. But he's a very compelling character. The actor, South Korean actor, commands the screen when he's on there. He's front and center, and he's got a very unique presence. I don't think we've quite had it in the same way before in Star Wars. I'm not sure if he's quite the lead character, but he's definitely the lead Jedi at this point, at least. And it's going to be interesting to see where his story goes. I love the fact that there's this almost like an old action movie setup of this. I've got to team up. I've got like a buddy cop movie. I've got to team up with my former partner who let me down, and we're going to have to work through this in the end. But then he's also got ties to Osha's sister May. He's on her list, and he's going to be in danger throughout the whole series. I do think.
Definitely. Something I want to talk about the Jedi actually is that, at the beginning of the episode, we see sort of, as I said, Yod is with his Padawan, Tassi Loa. But then when this little task force gets formed to go to the crashed prison ship and retrieve Osha, it's Jedi Master Sol along with his Padawan, Jackie, and then Yod joins them, but not as Padawan. So I wonder if we'll see Tassi Loa later on. I wonder if she's just doing some temple studies while they're on this adventure. Jason, what were your thoughts on Jedi Master Venestra Rowe and how obviously we've seen her in the High Republic books, and here she's much older and she hints at her age when she talks to Master Sol, saying she remembers when he was a child and he was going through those drills that he's putting the younglings through in the Jedi Temple. Obviously, so we've seen her as sort of a younger character in the High Republic books, and here we see her as sort of she's portrayed as probably the most senior Jedi we've seen so far, I suppose, in the series.
Yeah, for me, obviously, having not read the High Republic stuff, she's a new character for me. I've come in blind, but I like that. It looked very apparent to me that, like you say, she is the senior Jedi that we're going to see later on. Obviously, she talks of forming a small council to discuss how they're going to deal with May. And so that, to me, I felt that she was the one who was in charge as far as Jedi go at this point. And I think they've sort of used her as because there was lots of rumours. Oh, obviously at this time Yoda's about and that, and I think because what they want to do is this is new. We don't want to harken back to the old world. We know Yoda's about at this time, but we want a character from the High Republic to take on this lead role as the leader of the council that's not necessarily Yoda, because we've seen Yoda as the leader of the council. So I think that's really interesting, and I'm quite pleased that they've done that. And I know they've made a statement or seen somewhere that we're not going to see characters that we've seen from the others, and I'm happy with that because this is a new story and it should be treated like that. To me, she seems like quite an interesting, very level-headed Jedi, but also very insistent that this is what we're doing. Master Soul, going back to what you guys have said, I do see a lot of, and I know the actor Lee has said that he took sort of a little bit from the Qui-Gon character, and I can see that because, like you said, he's got that balance of he's a Jedi Master, he goes by the rules, but also if he needs to be decisive, he will be decisive and he'll stand by his decisions. The actor, I'm not going to try and pronounce his surname, Lee. Obviously, I'd seen him in Squid Games and seeing him in this and knowing that this is his first English-speaking role, what work he put into doing this, I think just goes to show his acting credibility. And I'm really glad that they've pushed the barrier sort of thing and used a character like this. And it just brings a freshness to the whole Star Wars story. And, it just goes to show there's some really great actors. Again, as I said, the guy that plays Yord, I think he pulls it off perfectly, getting the balance, and he's a very believable character. So once I got Vanessa Rowe, it's going to be interesting to see how much they use. Obviously, we've seen bits with the or pictures of the saber whip, which everyone's looking forward to seeing in action, and I think she's going to come into the story because we've seen these images of the battle where the guys face off against this Sith Lord, we assume. And I think she's a character that we're going to again take a journey on, and it actually makes me want to go back to the High Republic and read the stories to see where she's come from.
Yeah, definitely. I think moving on from that, we end the episode with, Jackie, Yord, and Sol have sort of grabbed Osha. They've saved her from falling off a cliff. I did love when Master Sol is like, she's coming with us, and we don't need to handcuff her, because I did feel a bit like he's handcuffed her last time, put her on a prison ship, and it didn't work. So, don't handcuff what can't be handcuffed, I suppose, is what was going through my mind. But also that level of respect there between Sol and Osha was very good. So we'll have these guys on Karlak, and then we sort of end the episode with elsewhere. May meets her mysterious master, who I believe is a Sith apprentice, and then this acolyte is who he's training up to be the one who he kills his master with, and then she'll become the Sith apprentice and he'll become the Sith master. That's just a theory. Like I said, he's pleased that she's killed the Jedi, and then she's being instructed to kill her next Jedi without using a weapon, which is the end of the episode. We'll go to you first, Jason. Is there anything about episode 1 that we haven't discussed that you want to highlight?
One thing there, when you said about when they obviously sort of recapture May, I get the feeling Leslie Headland was doing a great tribute to Harrison Ford there, because when they caught her, that gave me great vibes to The Fugitive. And to begin with, I thought she's going to jump off. She's going to jump into the water. And not May, sorry, Osha. That to me, I think that was a real nice touch. And I thought it was, again, sort of, I think she's putting little bits in there to show I'm a fan of all these characters and these actors. And she clearly is. For me, the ending was perfect. Actually, what you just said about him being a Sith apprentice, I'd had a discussion with one of my work colleagues today, and we both come to very similar conclusion. We felt that we might be seeing the building up to a Sith apprentice defeating his master and taking an apprentice of his own. So yeah, I'm hoping that could be the story, because I think that'd be a really great one to see. I'm also hoping that it's going to be Sith Lords that maybe we don't know about, but I have a feeling that Leslie Headland is a big fan of the expanded EU, so I've got a feeling she could bring in some fan favourites. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, as we've seen through other series, bringing in stuff from the expanded EU works. And I'm looking forward to that.
And Chris, anything about episode 1 that you want to highlight that we haven't discussed yet?
Yeah, there was a couple of things I wanted to bring up. The first thing was we briefly spoke about the Nemoidians appearing before. I was very happy to see them back. I've got a big soft spot for those guys, but I did notice that their accents had dramatically changed. I couldn't possibly guess why, but they have dramatically changed, probably for the better on that. But the real thing that I wanted to bring up was about the scene on the prison ship. I loved everything about this. This was perfect Star Wars to me. It was. I loved the little details, like the pilots that turned into chairs. That was a really cool little detail in this scene. I liked I don't know what you call it, the security bot that was walking up and down, the sort of conversation that was going on. You had this prisoner in the back who's essentially drugged up by this starfish, for want of a better word, on his mouth. But the thing that really stuck with me from this scene, and I don't know quite how to describe it, but it was that other prisoner, the one which was in a separate cell, the one who kind of had a human head on a robot's body.
You
Do you
mean
know what?
Dengar, not Dengar?
Yeah, exactly.
Dengar.
I don't know. I mean, I got Lobot vibes from him a little bit,
Yeah.
but I don't know if these guys are going to crop up again in the series. But I love their designs. I kind of like the characters of those that spoke as well. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them crop up as some sort of minor bad guys along the way.
Yeah, I think I love the prison ship as well. The fact that the droids were piloting the ship, and then when it all went sort of wrong, they sort of, they look like droids from maybe the Jabba's Palace era from the original trilogy, like the way the faces were similar. But then when it sort of when they moved back into the seat and you actually see what they were, it was like, oh wow, like, so this ship can be piloted by humans, but when it's not, like, the seats become the droids type of thing and control it, which I thought was really cool. Again, that cyborg man who sort of opened all the cells and shut the droids down reminded me a bit like, I don't know if you're familiar, but do you know Ponda Baba in The Doctor, who attacked Obi-Wan Kenobi in the cantina?
Mm-hmm.
It's like his big crimes are like mutilating people and creating like half cyborg people type of thing.
Yeah.
Like black market stuff. And then I think Dengar's known, I think, in the canon of like slowly but changing himself. That makes sense,
Right.
and then we see a character in the Rise of Skywalker in the bar who looks a bit like Dengar, but he's also more cyborg now. So I wonder if, I'm not saying it's Dengar because I don't think it is Dengar, but it's that type of modification. And also it reminded me as well of the mods in the Book of Boba Fett. So this guy's clearly being modded, and he can clearly use these robotic parts to like communicate the computer systems, which was really, really cool. For me, I just love the first. I love how pretty much all new characters except for Vanessa Rowe, who we've only seen in the book. I just feel that like they were able to give us a good grounding and an introduction into all these characters where it all made sense. I thought the acting performances were fantastic. I thought the sets looked awesome. And I was really, really happy. You know, it was even just that beginning when they entered the cantina, and you know, when they're all slurping down on the tasty ramen. It just made me hungry watching it because it just looked so real and good and tasty. Or maybe that's just because I'm a fat pig. Who knows? But yeah, like I absolutely loved the first episode. And I think we're ready to dive into episode 2. So again, episode 2 is Revenge/Justice. Again, it was directed by the showrunner Leslie Headland, but it was written by Jason McAuliffe and Carmine de Great, and I've probably pronounced that very wrong. And again, it was a double episode premise, so this released on June the 4th, June the 5th, depending on what side of the sea you live on. And we kick things straight off with May has moved on to her next target, and she attempts to kill Jedi Master Tobin in a temple on the planet Olega, but is prevented by his Force meditation. Tobin, who has been floating in silent meditation for over a decade. Thernesta has sent Sol, Jackie, Yord, and Osha to investigate this attack. May regroups with a guy called Kamiya, and he is helping her hunt the 4 Jedi that were stationed on her and Osha's home planet, Brendok, at the time of the fire. And those 4 Jedi were Indara, Tobin, Kelnaka, and Sol. Kamiya is who's taken over the local apothecary and is sort of making potions and things. Provides May with a poison and warns her that she still needs to kill one of the 4 without a weapon. May offers the poison to Tobin as absolution for his past. He stops meditating and willingly takes it, dying just as the others arrive. May escapes and Osha poses as her to get information from Kamiya. He reveals the existence of May's master and her overall plan. That night, Sol confronts May and reveals to her that Osha is alive. Osha attempts to stun May but misses, and May gets away again. She comes back for Kamiya later and threatens him over talking to the Jedi, but he convinces her to leave him alive because he has learned that Kelnaka is living on the planet Kofar, and that is where they should go to next. So yeah, this episode starts again where, you know, we're right back in the thick of it. You know, May's onto her next kill. Let's just go to you first, Chris. Just what were your thoughts on May and Jedi Master Tobin's sort of interactions? You know, the first interaction where nothing really happens and May is very frustrated, and the second interaction where she goes back to the Jedi Temple, and this time Tobin's let his guard down, and we find out why.
Yeah, it was interesting. Kind of the opposite of the first episode, the polar opposite, in fact, because the first episode started off with this Matrix-like fight, and then this one started off pretty much with May trying to initiate one, but just failing completely, not being able to get anywhere near Tobin. And then it was very interesting. You think at first, of course, it's later revealed that he's not spoken to anybody for years. We can infer maybe this is something that's as a result of this incident that happened with May. But regardless, when we first meet him, he's just floating there, and we're like, okay, is this just some sort of like deep Jedi meditation he's in? Is he aware of what's going on, or is he just putting up this force field around him because of the meditation state that he's in? But whichever one it is, May can't get anywhere close to him until later on in the episode when she returns, and she kind of says the magic password to him. She gets under his skin and causes him to open his eyes, come down to the floor, and then she gives him this choice, which I thought was really interesting. What exactly it sets up this central mystery of the show, which at first I thought was going to be who's doing these killings. But it seems, obviously we know who that is. We found that out relatively quickly. It seems to be more the central mystery of what happened all those years ago when, you know, Sol says they thought they were doing the right thing. But what on earth happened at that point? What on earth happened for them? And obviously, we're going to find out in the coming weeks, but the fact that you've got a Jedi Master who's prepared to commit suicide versus anything else over what happened, must have been something pretty bad.
Yeah, definitely. For me, what I hinted at is that you know, it's mentioned in the episode that Tobin has taken the Barish vow, which is sort of where Jedi thinks they've made a mistake or can't feel the Force properly, so they leave to sort of meditate on their own, to sort of become closer to the Force, I suppose. Now, yeah, is he doing that since the fire? And does he blame himself for something that happened there? And then when she comes back, he's obviously sensed her the first time, but like hasn't done anything about it. Then when she comes back, he's sensed her the second time, and then he's decided to lower his guard and actually like interact with May, which is very, very interesting. I do have a theory because I don't know if you noticed, but in episode 1, Master Indara sort of goes to move May's hair, and we see like a dotted spiral white tattoo on her forehead, which is linked to witches, similar to the Night Sisters who use the Force in witchcraft, who I believe are based on May and Osha's home planet. So I'm not saying she's working for the witches, but I'm saying at some point they've been a part of that culture. And also explain why they're Force sensitive. So I wonder if something freaky's gone on with the witches and their magic, what's led to all the chaos on that planet originally. And we have seen in one of the clips Tobin as a Padawan when he's on this planet in the flashback. His eyes go black to sort of simulate that he's maybe gone crazy and gone under the being possessed by the witches. So maybe he was controlled by the Coven to do some damage on this planet. Maybe not. Maybe blame himself. That's again just totally me just guessing based on some of the things that we have seen. Let's go over to you, Jason. Sort of, what were your thoughts on how the Barish vow was sort of handled in the show, and then also your thoughts on sort of the beginning of the episode and sort of where we see our characters?
Yeah, for me, seeing this interaction, I love the, like you say, the juxtaposition of where we see May trying to, having easily got rid of Carrie-Anne Moss, she's now trying to get Master Tobin, and it just isn't working. I love the fact that this then sort of gives us the idea that she's still learning, and she's come up against Sunk, and she has to rethink. Obviously, then the whole seeing the guys then being sent off, and the fact that Vanestra straight away says, "Take Osha with you. She could be useful." So this is typical Jedi that, it's risky, but if this person can be useful, we'll take them along. And then obviously, then we get to see May sort of talking to Kamir, and you get the feeling that this character has something. There's a darkness in him, and although obviously May is supposed to be this Force sensitive, or this Sith, we're assuming, to me there's something about Kamir that just comes across as he clearly knows more. And although we've seen this Sith with either master or apprentice giving May the instructions, obviously we've got this character now that's almost the in-between guy, which I found really interesting, and that's what made me want to see more of where this sort of relationship's going to. And obviously the fact that he sort of agrees to make the poison, but he's very much, you've still got to dispatch one without any weapons. And I was discussing this with someone. I feel this is maybe the Sith's way, because obviously there's been a lot of comments of, we've now got this we assume May is a Sith character who's using physical weapons, not a lightsaber, and I feel that that's possibly her master, whoever it is using her, is trying to train her to be more powerful with the Force rather than relying on a weapon, and is honing her Force skills by holding her back with the weapons, which in the long run could make her more powerful than the Jedi who just wield the swords. So I think this is us seeing the building of more of how the Sith work, which is what I'm really excited about. And I think this episode gives us a bit more of a hint of it. And obviously, this character, Khmer, I think is going to be someone that really does take the story a little bit further by appearing not to be someone as important as we expect.
So here's my thoughts. I think it's not so much about teaching how to use the Force. I think it's more like, so I believe that the character we see with the mask, who does the chilling speech at the end of the first episode, who's telling May to kill a Jedi without using a weapon. We've seen, if you kill the Jedi, you kill the dream type of thing. Kill the Jedi's dreams. He's a very haunting character. I believe he is the Sith apprentice. So Sith Lords, we know in this era, always two they are, a master and an apprentice. That's what Yoda says, okay. Now, the whole point is that this apprentice is meant to crave the power while the master holds the power, and then the apprentice kills the master and takes it. Now, I don't think that you kill your master, then you find your apprentice. I think you're probably doing that in the background, if that makes sense. So, and you're probably going to use that to help you kill your master. So, I believe that this Sith Lord, this Sith apprentice who we've seen with the mask at the end of the first episode, is the apprentice. May is his acolyte, who is training to be, his second in command once he becomes the master. And I think the reason why they're probably staying away from lightsabers is that we don't want to raise attention to the Jedi that there's red lightsabers running around because they'll think that the Sith are back. 2, I don't want my master finding out that you're running with a lightsaber, otherwise my master's going to know that I'm grooming you to help me kill him, and he's going to be more on guard. So I think it's all about secrecy. And then I think the Khmer just seemed very off to me. He seemed like his acting was like too put on, which I think was on purpose. And I actually think Khmer is the Sith Lord in disguise. So I think the Sith Lord, the Sith apprentice we see at the end of the first episode with the mask, who is May's master, this is him pretending to be Khmer because he's keeping an eye on her. And that's when he reminded her about, you've got to kill that weapon though. That was him just reminding her.
I was holding back from saying that because I wanted to, but that's the discussion that I had with my friend. I completely agree with you there.
So, it could absolutely be wrong. It could be barking the wrong tree, but I think that is definitely a possibility. And, he was definitely quite creepy. And we had, when the Jedi confronted him as well, he was very much he knew what to say, oh, don't use your mind tricks on me. Don't get in my mind. He was very much saying what normal dumb locals would say to come across that way. But we know he's not like that, if that makes sense. So it was essentially an act within an act, if that makes sense. I don't know what your thoughts were, Chris, on Khmer and just how he interacted with May and then how he interacted with the Jedi as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. I mean, I suppose you think that a lot of these shows, they always want to have the big reveal. There's somebody, somebody from a previous show is gonna turn up, and then that's the big reveal that they have. Whether it's Luke Skywalker appearing on an X-wing, or Ahsoka being revealed in Star Wars Rebels, or anything along those lines. It's always somebody old they want to bring in, or somebody from the EU. I think that with this though, I mean, obviously, barely any characters that we know and love from the movies are alive at this point. So it's going to be quite difficult for them to do that. So it does make sense for them to set up somebody and have that be the twist that it's that this Jedi or this Sith is the person who we've been looking at all along. But I like the character, but I thought I was a bit confused by him at first, if I'm honest, because I assumed that he was maybe I'd say kind of an equal to May, maybe trainee, maybe just part of the Sith cult, not a Sith himself, but a within their sort of organization that they have of some degree, but then quickly seemed to be not, and maybe beneath her, but he was also an expert in making poison. So there's a lot more to his character that we've yet to find out, whether he ends up being the big baddie or just somebody else. He's definitely a shady character. I also thought, I don't know, he seemed to be a little bit creepy with her, like a little bit. There was times when he was getting a little bit close to me, and I was like, "What is he suggesting here?" I don't know. There was just a couple of bits at different points where he seemed like he was showing attraction to her.
Yeah, I think he was generally like off the charts on showing many different things, which is why he made my hairs go on my arm, because it's a bit like my spidey sense thing. Because I was a bit like, no, there's something more here. You're too full on and you're too up and down, and that's on purpose because there's more here that we're going to learn, I think, as the episodes go on. Jason, what was your thoughts on obviously sort of us learning in the episode about the fact that it was Indara, Tobin, Kelnaka, and Sol who were on the planet when the fire sort of, we thought, killed May and her family, and obviously Osha was the sole survivor.
Yeah, I thought as the episodes went on, obviously it became quite apparent that Indara, Torben, and Sol, obviously the addition of Kaunaka afterwards was something that I knew he was a character that was coming into it, so it wasn't completely surprising. But obviously, now we know that these four more senior older Jedi's were involved in this incident. That obviously one relay resulted in Osha being saved, and as we sort of see through the interactions with Sol, obviously he wanted to save both sisters, but could only save one. And I like you say, I'm certain over the time of the series we're going to see through flashbacks exactly what caused this fire, and how we ended up with these two characters split off. And obviously, maybe we're going to see how May fell into the arms of the Sith. Um, sorry, guys. Obviously, Osha and May clearly both have very much trauma involved from this event, which I think is going to be explored. And they both sort of are trying to deal with their own emotions, which obviously, as we know for Jedi, emotions can cause all sorts of problems, which is, I think, quite clearly why Osha left the Jedi Order and has been travelling as she has. So yeah, it wasn't surprising that these were the four. Obviously, it sets up the story now perfectly. Two of the four have been dispatched. For one thing, Kalnaka's never going to be an easy one for anyone to dispatch, even if you are Sith. Those Wookiees are resilient and very, very tough. And Sol, as a character, there's something about him that's very commanding. So, we may have two down and two to go, but I think this is going to be part of the journey over the next 6 episodes.
Yeah, definitely. There was some awesome parts in this episode where, when Sol confronts May, and she can't beat him in hand-to-hand combat, and then she sort of throws the knife, and Yord's up on the balcony waiting to play his part, and he uses the Force to pull the knife, and he jumps down, and they've got her cornered until she obviously uses the Force to kick up the dirt and to run. But I thought Yord looked really cool in that moment. Somebody we haven't mentioned who I think is a really cool side character is Jackie, who is of course Master Sol's apprentice. I think she seems very headstrong, has good ideas, plays off Yord very well. And I think she's quite cool, as well as being maybe a little bit snitty with some things as well, like a young Ahsoka would be. I don't know what your thoughts are, Chris, on some of the the more minor characters who we've seen a little bit of, but who aren't at the front of the show.
Yeah, she's an interesting character. She seems very prim and proper. She's sort of the Obi-Wan to Saul's Qui-Gon Jinn, I suppose. We can say that. I think this series so far is doing a really good job of building the world. There's lots of just even minor little incidental characters that are cropping up here along the way, and I'm enjoying it. It's being done quite well. I mean, one criticism that there's been of the Star Wars TV series is a lack of alien creatures. It's been all humans and a couple of droids in the background, but there's been aliens left, right, and center in this series, and I've just been enjoying taking it all in. It's they're doing it pretty well so far. I'm glad that they're listening to some of that, criticism and building the world out a little bit. I thought that Torben was an interesting character. I'm glad to hear that we're going to see more of him, even if it's not literally him. But there's just something mysterious about somebody just hovering and floating there, and not doing anything. And it's interesting. I also have a little bit of a soft spot for that chubby Jedi. I don't know why.
I,
With
I
the British accent.
I completely agree. As a slightly tubbier person, I'm so glad to see a chubby Jedi, because suddenly I might be able to get myself some Jedi robes that fit.
I mean, he seems to just generally have a lot of lines. I just go, that's not our regular guy. But hopefully at some point he'll do something really, really badass, and everyone will be like, yeah, he's cool.
I think moving on from that, I think, towards the end of the episode we see May and Osha come face to face, and although Osha give it big licks before and talked about how, she wanted justice and revenge, for, she says she wants justice against May, and Saul very much says, no, what you want is revenge and you can't do that. But she gets a chance here to stun her, and she's pretty close to her, and she misses with that blaster, and I feel like Osha's probably good with the blaster, so I feel that like she missed because she let it get the better of her at the moment, if that makes sense. And she obviously feels something for her sister still. I don't know what your thoughts were, Chris, on when Osha and May came together, and sort of where do you think it's going to go in future episodes?
Well, it's an interesting little bond. I mean, it's a trope, about the twins and so on, but they've done it quite well so far. I think in this series, I don't know where it's going to go though, but it's interesting having one on the light side, one on the dark side. Will they convene together? Which one will fall to the other's side? Will we see a redemption for May in the end, or in this, will Osha fall to the dark side? We don't know. It'd be interesting to see, but we do have to remember this is called The Acolyte at the end of the day, so maybe this could be, the dark ending that we've always sort of thought, but maybe we'll get in one of these things. But being Star Wars, it always comes back to the good guys winning in the end. But obviously we know that the Sith don't properly reveal themselves for another 100 years, hold on, 80 years?
Be about 100 years, roughly, something like that, yeah. 80 to 100, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, at the end, it's not like the Sith are suddenly going to be revealed as, oh, hey, we're here. But this is the start of something. This is the start of leading into when they finally reveal themselves to the Jedi at last, as Darth Maul would say.
Indeed. I think, talking about May and, whether or not, she stays bad and sinister, I suppose. There was a moment in the first episode, which I've just remembered, which I probably should have spoken when we did the first episode, but when she leaves the cantina, the bar, and, she picks a knife up off the bar and she goes to she threatens to slash the barkeeper, but then the barkeeper's child is like down by his leg. And like he's keeping the child hidden and safe, keeping his son or his daughter like hidden and safe. And that's when she sort of pulls back and leaves him. To me, I said to myself, that's the moment where I thought maybe there's still some good in May. And, I'm not saying it's just going to turn all good and be forgiven for everything, but like, almost like, Luke turned the lightsaber off and threw it away, and the compassion turned his father back to the good side. Like, this was a moment here where like May showed that, no, I'm actually not going to kill him.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we even saw that quite recently in the Tales of the Empire. You know, about that same situation where Barisofi was being told by the Inquisitor that she needed to kind of kill everybody, and she didn't kill the child. She protected the child in that scene, and that was really the catalyst for her returning back to the good side. So this is protecting children is a recurring theme in Star Wars that indicates that somebody's not all that bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then by this act of kindness, by sparing the barkeeper and his son or his child, his daughter, I'm not quite sure. I think it's a son, but we don't know. That's what actually enables the barkeeper to identify Osha, which brings Osha and May together. So without her doing that act of kindness there, she probably wouldn't meet her sister. So that act of kindness there is the sort of catalyst to these two meeting and the catalyst to what's going to go on. I don't know if you noticed, but I even had an Acolyte T-shirt from Star Wars Celebration, right? But I didn't realize that the O was like two separate O's. I just thought it was like an O with like a silhouette and like a sunshine or whatever. But it's actually very clearly, when you see the graphic now and it comes up when you watch it on Disney Plus, it's two O's and one's in the darkness and one's in the light.
You're very right.
So very cool, and who knows where that is going to go. But yeah, I think there's some good in May. Should the right person be able to get it out of her, and maybe Osha is the person who can. And I think Saul's very much stepped back into sort of his teaching mindset with Osha, so she has the support there. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Obviously, we end with seeing Kalnaka on the planet Kofar with looks like some hunters, or one of the hunters, but either hunters or like raiders. The spot his house, which I think is a downed ship, and they think, can we steal things from it? And he, Kalnaka rocks up in just his bandolier. He hasn't got his Jedi robes on. Uses the Force to pull the blaster from one of them and breaks it and scares them off. And very much thought of Shrek and Get Out of My Swamp. The beginning of Shrek. I don't know if anyone else had those thoughts.
Well, they're in my head now.
Do you know when they've got the pitchforks and that, and then like Shrek's behind them in the beginning of Shrek?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and yeah, I can see that.
Like, there's all the signs saying like, "Ogre, keep out in danger, and he'll eat you." And there's even a sign there which I don't know what it says, but it says something. But yeah, these two wander in, and then like Kalnaka comes up from behind them, and I just thought of Shrek, which I love Shrek. So that's a good thing, I think Shrek's awesome. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are, Jason, on Kalnaka, and how we meet him here, and also what you're expecting of him in the future episodes.
Yeah, well, Kalnaka, he's going to be I love Wookiees, and so I've not got a problem there. I have to admit, there's something jarring about the costume that I'm still not quite getting. That it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't have the. It doesn't have the realism that the Wookiees have had in the past, and I don't know how to explain it. It's something that just hit me, but
because he's a Jedi Wookiee, so he's got more premium shampoo.
I reckon that could be. You could be right there. I reckon you could be right.
He's got conditioner as well.
But obviously, Jonas is a brilliant actor, and he spent a lot of time training with Peter Mayhew before he sadly passed away. So he's got the Wookiee down to a T that obviously Peter Mayhew created through the character of Chewbacca. But obviously this is a different Wookiee, and it may be something that I just need to step back from the love of Chewbacca for a little bit and just accept that this is a different character. But no, I'm really excited. And straight away, I'm thinking the next episode, if May's going after Kalnaka, he isn't going to be an easy one to dispatch. And obviously the race is on now for Sol and the gang to get there before May does. So I think the next episode is probably going to be a race against time to get to Kalnaka, and see, what happens from there onwards. So I'm looking forward to that because I love a good race against time and everything. Going back to what you said about the previous part where Osha and May sort of had saw each other for the first time, and obviously, I think Osha completely the emotions, like you say, took over. She couldn't bring herself to shoot her sister and missed. Either that, or she's been in stormtrooper training camp. Either way, appalling shot. But the one thing I'd love to say is that I want to say this right because I've looked at the spelling. I don't know. I'm guessing it's Amandla Stenberg. So I hope I got that right. But I think she is doing an amazing job at playing two different characters that, because they're twins, could almost be the same character. And there's clear differences between the two, which I think she's pulling off brilliantly. And that is the one thing that is coming through to me more and more, is that Leslie Headland has really brought together a really strong cast, and I think that's a really good thing. And I think it's going to help with the storytelling big time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, more of Kaunaka. I'm hoping he's not going to be dispatched quickly and then we just get left with flashbacks. I'm hoping he's going to survive May and journey with Soul. So at least one of the original four is there. And I just, I want to see what Jonas is going to do with this character. Because obviously he's already done a brilliant job of Chewie.
He certainly has. The sort of the episode ends with sort of, Sol, Jackie, Yord, and Osha are sort of being told to come back to Coruscant so they can discuss things in the Jedi Temple with the Council about the fact that Sol's found out that she's potentially been trained by someone in the dark arts. They're quite worried about that. And, we don't know whether they're going to go back to Coruscant or not, because Vanessa Rose very much like, you need to come back to Coruscant, and Sol obviously very much disagrees. To me, this made me think if we do go back to Coruscant, I think I know for a fact in the Jedi Council during this time period should be Atmos Rancis and Yaral Poof. So Yaral Poof is the one with the really, really long neck and then like bald head, and then Atmos Rancis is the one who has like tentacle body and like he sits like a sort of Indian god type creature, but he's got like, I don't know, it's quite hard to explain. I don't know if you know who I mean, but so if we do go to the Jedi Temple and do go to the Jedi Council, or even if Saul doesn't go there but Vanessa Rowe does, like we could see those guys. I don't know if anyone's excited about seeing some Jedi Council members who we already know.
Sorry, you go.
I've got a feeling we're not going to, and I think it was given away in the speech that she describes it as a small council, which is normally a group of members of the council brought together for a specific reason. And again, it's the fact that they said that they're going to try not to bring in characters that we already know. I'd love to see some, but I've got a feeling that wording of the small council means it's going to be a small group, and I think it's going to be a smaller group than it's going to be a group that we haven't seen before. And I have a feeling that Sol's going to do a Qui-Gon and do what he wants and possibly say, no, I've got to warn Kaunaka before we go back and discuss this because his life's at risk. Either that, or is he going to send Yord and him and Osha are going to go back? That's one possibility.
What's your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, well, I think I hadn't actually picked up on the small council thing, but I think you're probably very right on that. I think I was just going to say that my mind immediately when you were talking about Yarl Poof went to Robot Chicken. So if they flesh out his character in the same way in The Acolyte that they did in Robot Chicken, then yeah, I'll be very, very happy.
I think we're going to see Yarl Poof and Apple Rancis. I don't think we'll see Yoda. I think he's probably off doing something because obviously he is a big Jedi at the time, as he is when we meet him in Phantom Menace. But I think we'll see Yarl Poof and Apple Rancis, and and I'm all for that. Give me some figures of them in different robes would be fantastic. Chris, any closing points on both these episodes before we wrap things up?
I am all in on the Acolyte at this point. There was a couple of moments at the beginning where I wasn't sure where this was going to go, but I've stuck out for the ride of the first couple episodes, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to see more of it. I think all good series start with a good setup, and we've got a good setup. We've got a mystery, what happened on this planet, and also who is this Sith, or this Sith, as we've suggested in today's episode, this Sith apprentice that it could be. But what is going on? How did May enter this? We've got lots of mysteries that are yet to be revealed. They just have to stick the landing. But from what I've seen thus far, I think I've got confidence in this show. I think it's gonna do a good job. So yeah, I'm all in, and I'm looking forward to more of the Acolyte, even if there's no JBL or Farouk.
The APA are not here yet, but they're probably going to be rocking up once they finish their cans of beer and played some cards. I can imagine the APA playing Sabak, to be fair.
Yeah, I think they should have had a little cameo at the beginning of this.
There we go. I'm sure your name is Mark and not Chris. I'm sure the way you're going on. No, I'm just joking. Jason, obviously, just closing thoughts. Is there anything about episodes 1 and 2 of The Acolyte that you haven't discussed that you want to bring up?
Yeah, no, echo what Chris says. Obviously, went in a bit, not quite sure. Ended up, I'm sold, and I'm looking forward to the journey. I've just had something that I've spotted on the Jedi News. They've put up the episode breakdown for the full 8 episodes. Obviously, no titles, but the interesting thing is, it's saying that the episodes are going to drop at 2 a.m. British Standard Time in the UK. So unlike previous stuff, which we've had to wait for like 8 a.m., it looks like we're getting it early hours in the morning.
So the first episode is the same. So essentially, they've changed it to hit America better. So it hits America now at like 9 a.m. on the which coast is it at 9 a.m.? I think it will be East Coast, and then obviously it works out better. And then obviously for us, it's better for me. It comes out at 2 a.m. than 8 because I can get up at 4 and watch it before work, so I don't mind that so much. But yeah, they've changed that just to try and go in with the. And I think Ahsoka was the same. Ahsoka was dropping earlier.
They did for a few episodes, but then the majority of them were coming out at 8 because I was having to try and watch them as I was at work. So I was sort of using my mobile. So this for me is really, like yourself, really good news because it means I get to watch it before I go to work. It means I got to get up earlier, but knowing that the episode's going to be there just makes it a lot better for me. So this is good news as far as I'm concerned for enjoying it on the day, and also reduces the risk of spoilers if you have the opportunity to watch it before you go to work.
Yeah, definitely. I think something I want to bring up about the episodes is that every planet that we've seen in the episode so far is either named with a caption or it's named by people talking about it. Even Brendok, which I don't think we actually see a caption for, which is the homeworld of Osha and May. Like, it's mentioned by name when we see it in the flashback, okay? The one planet we don't hear the name of it mentioned or we don't get a description on screen is the planet at the end of season 1, which is where the mysterious Sith, who is May's master, who I think is the Sith apprentice, is talking to her and he ignites his lightsaber. And I think that's on purpose. Now, that planet is not, it's not named on purpose because it's probably an important planet. And I think it looks a lot like Actu or Acto, which is obviously the planet in The Last Jedi where Luke Skywalker is hiding. So it's where the very ancient Jedi temple is. It's where the Jedi texts are. It's an uncharted planet, but no one knows where it is. And I imagine at this point in the timeline, it's been lost for a long time. I don't know what your thoughts were, Chris, about this planet. And did you notice that it looked like Actu or Acto? And did you notice that it wasn't actually named when every other planet was?
I did notice that it looked like Act Two. That came into my mind there, but I didn't actually pick up that it wasn't named. But now that you've said that, I mean, that would make a whole lot of sense that they didn't name it if they want a reveal later on to become the fact that it is indeed Act Two. But there were no porgs, so I mean, I'm gonna have to put a bit of water on that theory, mate, because I didn't see any small space puffins nearly killing themselves with lightsabers.
Yeah, but because this Sith Lords ate them all.
Ah. Oh, and it reintroduced through Luke Skywalker's Porg cloning program.
I could eat porgs with like. I reckon you could eat porgs with like a Frank's buffalo sauce. Like, do you reckon?
Oh, I reckon so. I reckon you could get a couple of porg wings, some pork thighs. Yeah,
That one Chewie holds in the Last Jedi looks very tasty.
they look robust. They look like there's a lot of dense calories in a pork.
What? I'm all about
That
the dense calories. I'm all about that.
that was the one scene that when I saw The Last Jedi, I had to question whether I could sit through it with my two daughters because I was worried that once they realised that Chewbacca was about to chow down on a porg and the porg was sat there, my daughter has emotional issues, and I thought she could become distraught in the middle of the cinema. And what have Disney and Lucasfilm done to my child?
Jason, what were your thoughts on the fact that it looked like Act Two, and did you pick up on that every other planet was either identified on screen with a caption or was named by someone on screen? Then this one wasn't.
I have to admit, I'd sort of obviously I'd noticed all the captioning. I hadn't sort of twigged that they hadn't with this one, but also I know we discussed previously that we thought that Act Two was going to play a part because of the other scenes that we'd seen in the trailer, where we felt that it was showing Act Two. So yeah, for me, it would be completely feasible. That this could be where they end up with the standoff with this Sith apprentice stroke master, whoever he is. So yeah, I think they are possibly holding back rather than saying, yeah, this is Act Two. They want to sow a little bit of a seed of doubt. But I think we're going to see that is it. So yeah, I think Chris, sooner or later you're going to see some Porg action.
I'm here. I'm here for that. I'm here for all the porg action you can give me.
Stock up on the hot sauce and get ready to get some porg wings. Or at least I hope that's what you meant when you said porg action, and we're not talking about something a bit more.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
porg action, yeah.
as long as Kalnaka doesn't get there, well, they should be fine.
And then moving on from that, so obviously there's four Jedi that we've learned about who May's hunting. Indora, she's killed with a blade. Torben, she's provided the poison and guilt tripped them into committing suicide. Do you think she will be successful in killing Kalnaka and in killing Sol? We'll go first to you, Jason. What's your thoughts?
I don't think so. I think these two characters are going to survive. Although maybe Kalnaka could be. I think Sol's going to survive for sure. Kalnaka possibly could be a victim, but I don't think he will be. And I think we will see the two of them then uniting to sort of redeem whatever's happened in the past. So yeah, who knows? But that's my personal feeling.
Very good, very good. I think that wraps up sort of the end of the discussion. Chris, any lasting Star Wars thoughts, Acolyte or not, that you want to bring up and talk about?
I just want more. I can't wait. I'm loving it. We're back. It's summer. The weather's nice, and we've got Star Wars, and this is just it's the best time of year. Whenever Star Wars is on TV, it's brightening up my life. So I can't wait for a bit more.
Indeed. And we're going to get one episode a week from now until July 16th, 17th. So the next episode is on June the 11th or June the 12th, depending on which side of the sea you're on. After that, it is June the 18th or 19th. After that is June the 25th or 26th. After that is July the 2nd or July the 3rd. After that is July the 9th or July the 10th. And then after that is July the 16th or July the 17th. So we've had the double episode premiere, and we're now getting single episodes all the way until the finale, episode 8, which will be July 16th / July 17th, depending on which side of the sea you're on. Yeah, for me, just a fantastic opening. I think I'm just going to take us back to what I did tweet about it, or post, I suppose, because it's no longer called Twitter. My sort of thoughts about this. So I posted this probably within a few hours of watching it. So I set my alarm for 4:00 a.m. UK time. I got up, I watched the first 2 episodes, and then got ready and went to work. And then when I was having my breakfast at work, I put my thoughts down in a tweet, as you do in this lovely generation we live in. And I put, this is what I said: "That was simply outstanding storytelling and world building. Go watch The Acolyte now. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. It was like a swashbuckling murder mystery fueled on emotion and magic." And I also said it's the perfect entry point to Star Wars for anyone who's not big on it yet. And that's one of the things that I do want to talk about before we just wrap things up, is that, all the characters, are pretty new, except for Vanessa Rowe, I suppose, but even then she's new as well. And I think, you could watch this without even knowing what a Jedi was, because it sort of explains it to you as an entry point into Star Wars. I think it's a fantastic entry point. Jason, are you planning on letting any of the family watch this, or do you think it's maybe a bit too dark?
No, I think I probably will sit down with the girls and watch it at some point if I can convince them. At the moment, Jess is very much Star Wars, so I've got a 10-year-old that I think she can handle it, and I think she'd quite enjoy it. And you're right, it is a good entry point. And I think what Leslie Headland and the team that she's formed have brought together is a really, really strong story. And I think by having a plan, it's showing that it's good storytelling. And I'm impressed. And I'm really looking forward to going on this journey with them.
Indeed. Well, guys, I know you'll be back watching The Acolyte. Can I entice you guys back next week to review episode 3 of The Acolyte?
Oh, go on then.
Yeah, my arm's twisted.
Yes, of course, Peter. I can't wait to talk about this a little bit more.
That is awesome. And then something that has just come across my timeline, I suppose is what we call it these days, is that there is a Kelnaka comic book coming out from Marvel. So we might see some Kelnaka backstory. I'm probably going to try and pick that up. Obviously, the whole High Republic's like a publishing initiative through books, young reader, novels, comics, all different kinds of things. But this Kelnaka one's going to be more back end of the High Republic, so it's going to tie into this story, I suppose. So I don't know if you guys will be tempted to get the Kelnaka comic, or if you'll just wait for me to read it and tell you what it's about, which I'll be very happy to do. But yeah, as we wrap things up, Jason, where can people find you on social media?
Sorry, at Hondo Ling, as always.
And Chris, where can the people find you on social media, and where can people find your lovely podcast?
If you're interested in me, then you can find me at Quantum of Santos. If you're interested in my podcast all about aliens and cryptids and murders and all kinds of bizarre things that go on in the world, then you can follow me on Instagram at d.s.radio, or you can search Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other platform really for Dystopian Simulation Radio to hear me and my best friend talk absolute crap for about an hour and 20 minutes every 2 weeks.
Definitely check that out, because it is absolutely A, wonderful, and B, hilarious. The perfect mix, I would say, of things that make you happy. You can find myself on social media. You can find me on X, and you can find me on Instagram at Geordie Jedi Pete. You can also find the podcast on X at Boars Star, sorry. So it's like Star Wars reversed, at Boars Star. And you can also find the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Star Wars Podcast. We are posting quite a bit to TikTok at the moment, so check that out, including a lot of my Star Wars purchases and a lot of retro Phantom Menace 1999 merchandise. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a top review. You know, a nice 5-star review with a nice little sentence telling you how much you love the show. Makes all of us smile for a long time. It only takes you a few moments, and it helps people find the show. And again, if you're listening on one of the many wonderful other podcast applications out there, again, if it has a feature to leave a review, leave us a top one. And again, it just makes us all happy, helps people find the podcast, and it only takes you a few moments. But thank you very much for listening. May the force be with you all. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.